Hello, welcome to another episode of Coconut Connection. I'm your host, G, and this is episode 103.
Crazy, everybody. And this is Jade. It's some real hot girl summer shit up in this joint.
Yeah, that is my low. It's getting hotter, but
Ooh,
I'm trying to have gratitude because we know when it gets hot, that means that I'm on vacation. So that's my high, that I'm on vacation. My low is it's getting hotter because I really enjoyed the cold of winter and spring.
oh my God, it was
I
so
love it.
nice. Like, you know,
Yeah,
so that was both your high and low.
my high and my low.
Wow, that was like hit it in one spot. So
Mm.
for me, so my new job has been very positive and the people have been very supportive and kind and non-competitive. So that's the high. The low is that I do miss the relationships that I established
Yeah,
at my prior job. And I guess that's normal.
that's normal. Like
Okay.
anytime you move, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I left people behind that I was cool with, and
Yes.
yeah.
That made you laugh and
Mhm.
it's just that was, but more people come into your life. So it's going to be
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. Like, we had a teacher that retired this year, and I was already like the last couple of weeks, I was like, wow, it's gonna be the last time, but I'm happy for them
Yeah.
because you so deserve it. But then
Yeah.
like I just really enjoyed having somebody to talk to, like, and be like, oh, I can get through the day because this person is there, and we can laugh
Yes.
about things, or I can vent about things, and they're like, like they let me,
Yeah.
like, sorry for draining you. And they're like, no problem, and vice versa. Like, I will listen to them, and somebody that will be not judge you and be like so judgy. And it's very rare to find those type of people,
Yeah.
that genuinely and genuinely grow to like as a friend. So
Very true.
I
And
get
how many years have you and her were friends?
that. In the last probably like 4 years. Because when I moved to teaching the same grade as her, then of course we had to work together. And then we were room partners, like she was next door. So every time one of us had to go to the bathroom, we always watched the other person's class. Like, so and then we went through the pandemic stuff together. So we had a lot of meetings on Zoom. Like there was a lot of like interaction. And it continued after, when we came back in person. And so it's very rare that you have those kind of connections with people that you would actually like, hey, let's grab lunch, like,
Yeah.
on a summer day, like it's very rare. Usually like you only have like coworker friends, right? Like you see them when you see them, and that's it. I feel like, you know, uh it was a cool thing. And I'm like, I'm not gonna feel sad because it's for like they deserve, they
Yes.
deserve to like retire from this crazy, crazy profession. And so, but I get that, leaving people behind, and I think in the next couple of years from my school, they'll be retiring. So like they're,
Yeah.
leaving us behind, but then like you're like, oh, how, like you have to like build relationships again with new people. And
Yes.
I know it's just
Right? It's hard. It's hard.
but hopefully, like can only hope that, you'll still keep those connections, like, but it was what it was for at the moment,
Yes.
and if it's just work remains. Yeah.
Very true. And you can always connect. You keep the people in your life that are important to you. And if they feel the same way, then you will continue
Yeah, you'll be lucky if you
on.
feel the same way. And so
Yes.
people just disconnect, like from
Agreed.
it, like for whatever reason. So yeah. Is that your high and your low?
No, my low was no, right? Is no, I my low was that I missed the relationships
Okay. What's
established
your
with
high?
people. My high was that my new job was very positive and that the people
Yeah,
have been
that's what I said. That
supportive.
was your high and low.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, you hit it.
I guess
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, beginning of summer. I mean, last we were on a short hiatus because there was a lot of stuff going on last month, like going like super crazy. Like I even lost my voice at one point. I can't fully get my voice back. I don't know when it's ever gonna come back. Like it's been a bunch of months before.
Yeah.
But there's always something that requires well in June there was just a lot of talking,
Yes.
singing, a lot of screaming and laughing and like it was like I think it was like Sunday, like last Sunday. I had to go back to my mom's and like I barely had voice. I
Oh
was
my gosh.
like I was like telling Johnny like I can't because he's like, get me up for this because he works at night. So I'm like, and I'm like, I cannot. Usually I just start like yell like through it or I'll
Yeah.
talk on the phone. And it's like, oh God. I'm like, do you see that I lost my voice and I cannot raise my voice? Like whatever, like half asleep. Okay. Well, today's topic, episode number 103 is about titles. And the reason why I brought this up was because at our job, um, the our administrator brought up a topic with my students as a whole, like the whole school, but and it was about titles, about like a mini lesson basically on titles like Miss, Mr., Mrs., Ms., Doctor, Professor, like
Yes.
because we had this thing where the kids and I always mention this. And so after the talk, I told the kids, see, I told you guys about that. But I said they would always just call you Miss. They'd call
Yes.
everybody Miss. And I said, I get it, at least it's a respectful thing. You're not saying, hey, you, but I've been your teacher for 100 days. But you should know my name because I memorize everybody's names.
Yes.
I don't say student or hey, you the boy with the blue shirt. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, wouldn't you be feeling like, wow, my teacher doesn't know my name still? Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you be like, I'm just like, so everybody, because also there was a situation where like the students would be reporting stuff that happened on the playground.
Okay.
They would tell the principal. And the principal's like, who did you report it to? And they were like, I reported it to Miss. So it's like, Miss who? There's like,
Yeah.
majority of our teachers and TAs are all women.
Yes.
What I mean? So it's like, and they do the same thing with the males. They are like, Mr.
Yeah.
And it's like RTA, like, I'm like, he's been working with us since day one. And you
Yes.
still don't know that it was what his name is. They know what his name is. They just choose not to use it. Which,
Yeah.
which I was always like, so anyway, it just so happened that we had this mini lesson to the whole school. And she was bringing it up and she asked the teachers, like, what do you like to be called? And so I said, I would like to be called Ms.,
Yeah.
So then that came up in our classroom and I was like, do you guys, so I've been telling you guys this about calling each other by names, right? I go, it makes people feel seen. Like I'm just not any miss. I'm your teacher,
Yeah.
And like, and the other thing is I've had parents in the past don't even know my name.
Oh, wow.
Because their kids never mentioned it.
Yes.
Even though my name's on everything, but yeah, I had a student that told their parent that I was their student and
Oh,
that she was not going to, and she goes, yeah, tell her that I'm not going to be able to make the appointment to the parent conference. And I'm like, who? And like, that's not my student. I don't have any
yeah.
students named that name. So I asked the kids, I'm like, do you guys know, a Dominic? And then they're like, yeah, he's upstairs in so-and-so's
Yeah.
class. Like, we're not, he's never been in my class ever. I was like,
Wow.
so really? You really thought your teacher was her name? Like he probably got confused and being like, oh yeah, her name is this. I'm like, that's a problem. Like
Yeah.
you're not really like paying attention. I don't know what it is. like, you're not paying attention to names and teacher, like, and I'm like, if
Interesting.
you don't know somebody's name, you just ask them, excuse me, what's your name again? Like, I just feel like it would be weird if I were just calling kids like boy and girl, like my student, hey, you
That
student.
does, when you put it in that perspective, it's weird.
It's weird, right? Like
Yeah.
after 100 days, I'm still saying, hey, you, pointing at him, like, hey, you, what's the answer? You would actually look at it as, wow, that teacher's so disrespectful. She's
Yeah.
pointing at a kid. She doesn't even know his or her name, but yet we found it as, I don't say it's a problem because nobody was enforcing it except for me. Because I'm like, I'm not gonna answer to miss anymore. So they're
Yeah.
like, and I'm like, that's not my name. That's not my name. And then they say it. I'm like, see, so they know my name.
Yeah.
So anyway, I talked to my students and I was like telling them, so if it's a male, it's Mr.
Hmm.
No matter what, unless they're your doctor, right? Or the president,
Yeah.
But for women, I wrote on the board, it's Miss, it's Mrs., it's Ms. And they're like, and I'm like, and then I said, I prefer to be called Ms. because I don't think that you should be defined by if you're married or not. Like,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a factor. Like, I'm married, but it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
So anyway, I went on my whole rant about it, how, why did for men it's just one thing, and for women
Yes.
it's all defined on whether you're married or not.
Right.
And if you want to, I'm like, if you want to know if someone's married, you just ask them, right? Or you
Yes.
look at the ring or whatever. Like some people don't even, I don't wear even my ring that much,
Yeah. I don't either.
you know. So, and then in a sense, doesn't matter unless you want to date them, you would ask them, right?
Hmm.
So I told the kids, so what did you guys learn today? And they're like, one of my students raised her hand. She said, to never get married. I said, no, that's not what I was saying. Oh, so I was like, okay, at the end of the day, just call them Miss or Mr. Or
Yeah.
ask them, what do you prefer to be called? Like, or we can err on the side of gender. Let's, like, you know what I mean? Like Miss and Mr., like fine. But I said, but I'm sorry, I'm too young to be a Miss. I go like that.
Yeah.
Do you think your parents are
Exactly.
calling me señorita? And they're like, no. And I'm like,
Yes.
exactly. That's what you're calling me.
Yes.
I think I go, I'm 5'0", guys. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
I agree with you.
experienced and know things.
I agree with you. Miss is very for the young adult,
They're
young
young. Like if it's
under
Spanish,
third. Yeah,
yeah,
under
señorita, you wouldn't be
30s.
calling, you know, an older lady that, you just assume,
Yes.
right? Or maestra, whatever. But it's like, so I wanted to talk about that because I thought about it. I'm like, so what were the history of like these titles? And I thought it was interesting. So like, bear with me because
Okay.
let's see, I totally looked at this like a long time ago when we were planning it. This is like in May.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I personally like Ms. I like Ms. I will call anybody who I perceive as 30 or old, 30 or onward, and if I don't know if they're married, I will say Ms. If
Mm,
they are married, I will use Mrs. Or when I'm talking to their husbands, I'll say,
like
"So
I'd
how's your
much
Mrs.?"
rather, yeah, I told the kids, I go, I don't mind using Mrs. because yes,
Mhm,
I am married. You
mhm.
could say Mrs. Spiller, but I said I don't want Miss.
Yeah,
It's just anybody on the street, but we've been together for every single day. And I made it a point to memorize everybody's names. And I'm like, you can remember, I'm just your one fourth grade teacher. Like you can memorize that name.
exactly.
And like if you say Mrs. or Ms., like it's fine. I just don't want you just call me Miss
Yeah,
Blank.
Miss.
Like not Miss
Mhm.
Blank, just Miss. Like don't
Yeah,
even say your last name. You know what
they
I
do.
mean?
They call you Miss. Miss.
Yeah,
Miss.
yeah. And it's like I get that, from kids, like the kid that didn't know who I was, like wasn't like I'm not his student or his teacher. I could get, okay, you're calling me Miss because you don't know my name. But I'm talking about the kids that are in my class for 180
Yes.
days. You're still calling me on the last day Miss. Come on.
Yes.
I think
Agreed.
it's I think it's I get so respecting because they call everybody Miss, but it's more respectable if you call me by my name.
Yes.
Because that means you know who I'm different from the other person that's walking.
Yes. And they're paying attention, at least in some, that they're paying attention to you. Like if you're just some miss, I mean,
Yeah. And
you're no.
our TAs don't reinforce it. I have to reinforce it because they don't mind. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, or like, my name is too complicated to say. It's like, well, then come up with something, like Miss X or something,
Yeah.
or even if it's your first name. Like I don't reinforce that. I think it's different because the TAs and the kids, they feel connected to the TA.
Yes. It's a
Because
different
they're
level.
still young. They're still
Yes.
young.
Yes.
So they don't mind it. But I said, no, I prefer them to call you by your last
It's a
name.
level of respect.
It's a level of
For
respect.
the teacher. Yes.
Because when you have to tell them what to do and they're
Mhm.
arguing with you, like that's what I'm talking about. Like you're only doing that to follow the rules or for safety reason, and they're arguing with you.
Mhm.
I'm like, no. But some TAs, like, they don't mind being called their first name, which is fine. But as long as they're not calling you just by your first name.
Yeah.
So I was looking lightly, like researching, and let's see. It says here that mistress is a root word of both the abbreviations Mrs. and Miss, just as Mr. is an abbreviation of master. So this is like in the
Interesting.
like hundreds of years ago, right? So it's master, I mean, yeah, master. Like, I don't know, like you read
That's
those things like
weird.
that, like, was it like Pride and Prejudice and all that?
Yeah.
They use those titles. So MR is actually abbreviation from master. Is master of the
Interesting.
house, right? Like master
Yes.
bed. And then it, I guess, started to be like Mr.
Huh.
Let's see. That one I thought was interesting. Let's see. Okay, so it
It's
says,
funny that and Mrs. to me feels like it makes me feel like I'm somebody's property, which is why I don't like the Mrs., but
okay,
that's me.
my other thing is like both of them have to do with being married. And back then,
Mhm.
like, yeah, that was the most important thing women could do is be married, because God forbid that you weren't married. In
Yes.
fact, the teaching profession, I found like a list of rules, and one of them was like that you were not married. Like if you were a teacher in female, you were not married, and you couldn't go out to drink because you were a public figure, and that you couldn't stay out late. Like, I'm like, what kind of job is that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that's how they viewed it. Like,
Wow.
um, um, let's see, it says that Miss was adopted by adult women for the first time in the middle of the 18th century. Before that, Miss was only used for girls in the way
Okay.
that master is only ever used for boys. To refer to an old woman as a miss was to imply she was a prostitute.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, until the 19th century, so the 1800s, most women did not have a prefix before their name. Mrs. and later Miss were both restricted to those of higher social standing. So only if you were, like said, if you were only like you were privileged and you were like you had social standing, you were probably going to be married or unmarried,
Yes.
right? So you're the only ones that use Mrs. and Miss. Women on the bottom rungs of the social scale were addressed simply by their names.
Oh.
So in a large household, the housekeeper might be Mrs. Green, while the scullery maid was simply Molly. And the woman who came
Oh,
in to do the laundry was Tom Black's wife, or Betty Black. So they called them by their first names.
interesting.
Um,
Maybe did I notice that in Downton Abbey? Did they call the house like the one that misses, and then they did call the ones underneath them like their name.
mhm.
Okay.
Historians have long known that Mrs. indicated social status, but they normally assume it also shows that the woman was married. Um, Mrs. was the exact equivalent of Mr. Either term described a woman who governed servants or apprentices. So a person that has money basically gets that, Mrs. and Mr. It becomes clear that Mrs. was more likely to indicate a businesswoman than a married woman. It was used in the 18th century. Yeah. So the women who took membership of the London companies in the 18th century, all of whom were single and many of whom were involved in luxury trades, were invariably known as Mrs., as the men were Mr. Literally, they were masters and mistresses of their trades.
Okay.
So that's what kind of like makes it fuzzy, because like Mrs. usually means you, like you said, you're married, you have a husband.
Yes.
So at some point they needed to really know, like, okay, were these women, single or married? Okay, so that was that. Let me see this other, and that was from like some UK published article.
So it sounds more like an English thing.
Well, and then English came over, right?
Yeah.
So they brought those things to America.
Makes sense.
Okay, I think this is oh, okay, so this one actually quotes the one that I just read, so that's good. Let me look at this other one then. From the New York Times. Okay. So this one talks about the Ms. In 1901, oops, why are we doing that? In 1901, there was something published, and it has an unnamed writer, but it put forth a modest proposal. There is a void in the English language, which with some diffidence we undertake to fill. Everyone has been put in an embarrassing position by ignorance of the status of some women. To call a maiden Mrs. is only a shade worse than to insult a matron with the inferior title Miss. Yet it is not always easy to know the facts.
Yes.
So how do you avoid this social faux pas? The writer suggested a more comprehensive term which does homage to the sex without expressing any views in their domestic situation, namely MS period. Ms. With this simple and easy to write title, a tactfully ambiguous compromise between Miss and Mrs., the person concerned can translate it properly according to the circumstances. For oral use, it might be rendered as Ms., which could be a close parallel to the practice long universal in many bucolic regions where a slurred Ms. does duty for Miss and Mrs. alike. So this was in 1901. This Ms. started popping up.
Yeah, I do like Ms.
Yeah. And so like when I address like parents, because all of them have different last names too. And you're not like wanting to take a survey on like who's married, who's not married, like, all these things. At one point I did say like, what do you prefer to be called? But most parents don't want to answer that for some reason. Like, so it's just easy for me to say Mr. and Ms. Unless they correct me, because they all have different last names. They don't necessarily match the kids' last names, and that's fine. For whatever reason. And I always just say Ms. I don't know how that translates in Spanish, but because we have like auto translate in our communications. But
I'm sure that's like you said, senora.
I've never been,
senora, right?
I've never been corrected by anybody. But some people don't like to be called senora.
That's
like,
true. Like I don't like ma'am. I hate the word ma'am.
Again, like, how do I know if that woman is married? Like, just because they have a child doesn't mean they're married. So like, I'd rather go to the English side and say Ms. rather than just call everybody senora.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I don't know how it's translated. Like we have an app that like we can send messages to parents and it automatically translates for it. So I don't know what it automatically translates to,
That'd be interesting.
I never gotten corrected by it.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about like I hate ma'am. Like I don't know. Not that I hate. I just feel like that makes me sound so old, even though I am old. But it's
Yeah, you
like,
are. So like, accept it. It's
but
better than hey
ma'am just
you.
sounds
No,
so.
honestly, it's better than hey you. Like literally. Like ma'am, yeah, like if I'm going to Starbucks and they're like, like you're welcome, ma'am, like I'll take it because that's better than
Mm,
nothing. I've gone to drive-throughs where there's one like I just recently went to, we just stared at each other
ah,
and I'm like, I think he was being trained. I have to tell myself he
yeah.
was trained because I was like, so it was 11:34, you said, right? Like, he's like, "Mhm." I'm like, okay, here, give him the money, and then that's it. Like, took the
What?
money, and then I'm like, we're good, right? We're good.
Yeah, sometimes it depends on the day they're having, right? Because sometimes I feel like they have a script where they have to ask you about your day, say something they
But they
like about you.
should.
They're
That's
like,
called customer service.
it's like, I like your nail polish, that, and I know it's part of the thing, but it's nice because, but it is weird when some of them just aren't friendly. Like they just,
But that's like didn't even speak. I was
wow,
like,
yeah, I don't,
"Mm,
that's weird.
maybe he has a thing. Like, so I saw somebody behind him, so I'm like, I'm gonna say he's training. It's his first day, and maybe he has a situation that I don't know about. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like, so I was just thought that was interesting, but that's to the extreme. But some places they'll never say thank you or
yeah,
you're welcome. So, but my whole thing is like with the ma'am thing, like ma'am is also like very like regional as well. Like I think it comes from like Midwest, like that area. And it kind of just like goes into I figure like it's better than just not saying anything. I don't know. That's my opinion.
yeah.
I feel like that's a sign of respect. Like like I need to be respected as a customer because I'm paying you a lot of money. Like let's
Hmm.
be honest, everything's expensive. And it's like, if they call me miss or ma'am, that's fine. My issue is when I know you and you know me and I know your name and you don't know mine. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
there to me is disrespectful because it's like your name is like your name is how you be seen or else we'll just have numbers. That's why like what in certain places they take away your name and you're a number now.
Hmm.
So that's what's like, am I just like a robot here that, even the robot has a name.
Yeah.
Siri has a name. You have to call her by your name for it to go off. So ma'am, I'm not,
I think it feels like
if I was
Missy.
like maybe like 20 years old, they call me ma'am, then yeah, maybe I would be, but
Yeah.
I'm like 50, almost 51. Like
Yeah.
I earned that right to not be disrespected. Like I should be like, yeah, like treat me like a person, like
Yeah.
respect me. Cause you know, I guess like, I guess like being in America, like having the title of an elder doesn't exist.
Hmm.
Where in society, where it's like your elders, you were respected. You might not like what they say, but they were respected because you wouldn't be here if they did not, raise you and whatnot. And that's when you used to have the village or the neighborhood would raise children, you know. So yeah, I take that as at least you seeing me and respect me rather than just be like that guy that didn't say anything. Which, like I said, I think it was a thing. Like he was maybe scared first day in the job, but yeah, I mean, it's just I think all people want to be seen and heard, not just me. I think that's
Hmm.
everybody. Like you just want to be thrown your drink out of the Starbucks, right? Like if
Yeah.
you
No,
yeah, you
I
wouldn't be like,
agree.
wait, what's wrong with their attitude? Like
Yeah.
them being very friendly, and it's like, what if they just said and then close the window on you? It's
Yeah.
like
And that's happened, right? I mean, that's
I
happened to
just
me.
paid $5 for a coffee. Like
Plus tip,
at
because you're
least
forced now to
but
give
I've
the tip.
never had that experience at Starbucks. That's one thing. Starbucks,
Oh,
In-N-Out, and Chick-fil-A, never had that experience. Every single one that I've gone
huh.
to, they've always been very polite, and I totally appreciate it now. And I feel a little bit better parting my money, parting ways with my money. It's
Hmm.
just that, like, and but like I said, like I don't hear ma'am a lot. Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's just like how you're raised. Like some people are like I think in the Philippines it's like sir, ma'am. They just say
Mhm.
sir, ma'am, or ma'am if they're sure that you want to be called.
Yeah.
In 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 uh in Filipino language, there's really no pronouns. They don't. So like my mom always will get the pronouns mixed up, but it's not because she doesn't know. Like she'll be like he with to me, but I think it's just like a language thing. Like it's just not important in their language, the pronouns. It's everybody's they, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think someone was saying that too at work because someone asked me and they're like, don't be offended, like, but I'm just curious because I have my big old earrings and I'm very masculine presenting, I don't wear my ring or
Yeah.
whatever. And then she was like, how do you identify? And I'm like, no, don't, I'm not offended, she, her, and I am straight, because she was older, so I know she was, I think, also asking my sexual preference,
Yeah.
like, but
Yeah.
and the other woman who's she is Filipino, she did say, "Oh, in our language, there's no." She said exactly what you said. Like they
Yeah.
have the same word for
Or everybody.
yeah, mm-hmm,
Yeah. It's just they. And
mm-hmm,
so yeah, I mean nowadays it's different. Like I said, I'm like, you don't know, just ask. Like just
mm-hmm.
because if you feel offended, like you just don't answer. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Um uh like for example, like did she ask you, are you straight or gay?
No, she actually did, but she said, "How do you identify?" Because you
Yeah, because
wear
like
she,
asking
but
your
the
sexuality is actually sexual harassment.
oh, I know, no, yeah, yeah,
Not
she did
supposed to
that,
ask people like
yeah.
who you like to have sex with.
No, because the way she said, she followed it with, "So how do you identify?" Because
Well, how do
you
you
dress
identify
very.
gender and sex are totally two different things.
I know. It gets all confused. That's why, like, we were all confused. I said, don't worry. It's like, I,
Unless she asks you like who do you like to have sex with? Like
no, she just said, how do you identify? That's what
how do
she
you
said.
identify has nothing to do
Yeah.
with
And I said, she,
your
her.
sexuality.
But she said, followed that with, because yeah, she's like, because, the way she said, you wear rainbow things, that's why she was just like, you wear rainbow things and it's the
And you
way
have
she
to look
said
at
it.
a perspective of like an older person,
Yes.
which
Yes,
is
exactly.
you.
Yeah,
Which is you
exactly.
because
That's
there's a lot of things that maybe we don't understand that you're like, okay, I'm trying to navigate through this and try to be respectful as possible.
No, I totally was. That's why I said I totally got where she was coming from. I
Like
said, "Don't worry, like
and
I
she's not 20
understand."
years old asking you.
No, no, no. And I said, and then we laughed about that. And we said the younger generation is very good about knowing, like about knowing how to. So that's when we got into it. We talked about they, them, because for older people, that is a weird concept for older people, they, them. And then the Filipino coworker was like, "Oh, our language, we only have what like one word and it's
Mhm.
so that was why it was interesting, that whole but I'm glad she asked. I said, I'm glad you asked. I said, because it's not, I used to think that it was insulting. I would tell my daughter, isn't it rude to be like, so how do you identify? She's like, no. And my daughter would say, if you don't know, just say they, them. Like it's
Right.
proper. It's proper,
They say like, or you see like, a lot of times they'll have it on their email or they'll have,
hmm
or they don't have it at all. Like it doesn't matter. Like it
yeah.
really doesn't matter. Like, yeah.
But that's interesting about the like master for Mr. and Mrs. being, that's like so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's that again, these are like remnants from, that colonial mind.
Mm-hmm.
We're still
Yes.
like if you watch real estate shows, they don't call it the master bedroom anymore, the master bathroom.
Yeah, they call it what is it called?
Primary.
A primary.
It's
Yeah.
the primary. And it's just I know my husband was just like, no, it doesn't affect me. That's like a bit. I'm like, no, it's just, but it is the language. They're trying to break the power of that language.
Yeah.
I mean, because only people of social status would ever get master. You would never call somebody with lowly status master. They would
Mm-hmm.
never be a master. They would just be like their name, like Tom. So it's very like class, classes and racist and very like, it's about power, and so
Mm,
we're trying to take the power out of it. And so that's why I think I did not get offended by that whole presentation. Like I was like, finally, because
yeah.
she is actually a doctor, right? She has a doctorate. So she was like, I prefer to be called doctor
Hmm.
because they were calling her Miss.
Oh,
They were calling her
okay.
Miss. And then suddenly
Yeah.
they were Miss Doctor. It's like, no, it's just doctor. You know what I mean? Because she's a woman, you're just like, oh, must be Miss, but
Yeah,
like, I prefer to be called doctor, you know. So and you paid for that title,
exactly.
what I
That's
mean? Like I'm like,
exactly.
if I was a doctor, I'd want everybody to call me doctor or forever. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I went through pain, sweat, and tears and money to pay for that title.
Yeah.
So I thought it's never been brought up before in 25 years of my teaching, yet I was actually happy for it because that was a
Yay.
school-wide thing. So then I was able to reinforce it more. I was already reinforcing it in my class because I was just trying to tell my TAs not answer, but they they're kids too. So they just let it happen. But I was like, no, I need them to respect you guys as teachers and adults. So that's why I always say it's Miss or Mister or whatever. And I don't push the whole like, if you don't care what to be called, I always prefer like they call you by your last name.
Hmm.
But some kids, they're all college students, right? So they're like, some of them feel more comfortable to call them by their first name, which I totally get. Because when I was a TA, I think they called me by my first name, but they was always Miss. So
Yes.
so I get that, like let me just meet them halfway, and like I'm trying to teach kids etiquette, like not etiquette like should be like sitting proper. I'm like, no, just certain things that you shouldn't say casually, even
Hmm.
though but you can because you're a kid, you don't know better. So, like certain things like you shouldn't assume someone's tired just because they don't have makeup on. You know what I mean? Like they're just like freely just saying, oh, you must be tired because you don't have makeup on. It's like, no, it's called, other life happens, like because I get here on time every single day, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's more important than, making myself look presentable to you. But
Yeah.
um they are not taught that. So it's like it's I always assume like you just don't know. So that's why I appreciate like those places that no matter where you go, that you always get the same customer service,
Hmm.
which is, just the courtesy. Like I appreciate it. Like not everybody could do that. And I'm just like, I appreciate it. And like, um, just the acknowledgement. You are taking people's money. So
Yeah.
like
I
I'm just
do. I
you're
do.
not giving me free coffee, you're
Yeah.
not giving me free anything. So it's not a
I,
handout.
I do like when they do conversate with you, even if it's just in my mind a script, but it is nice because you feel like, okay, it just makes you feel like it's an interaction, right? It's like, even though, like you said, you're exchanging money and you're buying something, it
I
just
just
makes
feel
you
like
feel
it's
like,
courtesy, yeah. Like I don't
hmm,
even care if they know about me or whatever. I just feel like, yeah, I'm giving you my hard-earned money, and it's an understanding. It's a mutual transaction. Like we're gonna provide you food, I'm gonna take your money, but it should be a pleasant thing. Like it shouldn't be
agreed.
I'm bothering you by or
Yes. Yeah.
and that's what I hate. Like, oh, excuse me for, like you should just quit, like if you don't
Yeah.
like your job. So, so yeah, when I go to Starbucks, I don't really feel like it's scripted. Like, I think they're just nice, because I've never had the same interaction with people
Hmm.
there. It's like we have a really good drive-through over there. And so, but I think it should be part of, your training for sure. I
Yeah.
got trained at Lady Foot Locker, and we had not a script, but there was always something that you'd have to greet the person.
Hmm.
It just don't be like, how many shoes do you want? What was your size? It's like they train you like, how are you doing? It wasn't even a conversation, but I did see that you did engage with them more as a person if you have conversation with them.
Yeah.
So, which I was really bad at, but But I think it's like part of the service. You're paying
Mhm.
for part of the service. It's like the difference between, say, Foot Locker and like Payless.
Mhm.
They're paying more for the service. Like they're gonna sit with you and get the shoes out that you don't have to go looking for the shoes.
Yeah.
They get the shoes out to you. They lace up the shoes for you. All these things, they're paying for that even service that people don't care about their service. They'll go and they'll look at for themselves. But like it's just embedded, like I don't know. I don't know if I would go to certain places like and just be like get really bad service. Like really
Mhm.
bad service, I don't go to at all. Like I'm
Yeah.
just like they're cheaper, but I don't care for their I feel like I'm bothering them. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
No,
So
I like we've gone to so many in our pandemic driving. We usually, because that's all they want a lot of times is Starbucks. So we hit like all the different ones throughout the town, and so it is nice when they all, and when they always start with a compliment,
yeah,
it's
you
like,
wanna you wanna have a good experience. You don't wanna have a
yeah.
bad experience. And
Mhm.
like they have a brand,
Mhm.
because yeah, if I got really bad from the same person, like I wouldn't go there anymore. Like I was just like, no, I'm not gonna go there. And if I would tell people, I'd be like, don't go there. Like
Yeah.
they're in there, they don't know what they're doing, or they get my drink wrong all the time. But that hasn't been the case for me. Like at least the Starbucks that I go to, like
Yeah.
they're pretty consistent.
Well, that's
Like
good.
pretty consistent. Like I don't think I've ever had like a bad experience at any of those places. Not that I remember. If I do, I probably just like, oh, that was just that one time. Like,
Yeah. It's a one-off.
yeah, it's a one-off.
So what do you think of this episode? What title do you go by? Or do you not care? Should we still have these titles? What function does this provide present time? If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate us so we can receive more visibility and grow our audience. We would love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on our social media pages like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search for the Coconut Connection. Our handles are in the show's notes, or you can email us at coconutconnection2@gmail.com.
All right. So that was an interesting discussion that I think that people don't really talk about.
Honestly, I've never like I just knew what I liked and what other people like to be called, but I didn't realize the history
Mm,
behind that. But when you said that, I'm like, oh, okay, from colonization. That makes sense. I'm
I
gonna
get-
ask.
yeah, it's almost as if like we shouldn't even have it anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's,
When you think of it that way, you're like, yeah, we don't.
yeah, like we don't like maybe president. Okay, I could see. You know what
Yes,
I
because
mean?
you've earned that. You've earned that, right? That
And
title.
you have an important job. But like I think, I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to think like where else would it fit? And it's like, yeah, can't we just call each other by our first names? I don't know. I get that if you don't know somebody,
Yes. I guess ma'am and sir,
we
you're
really
right.
need to like when they ask you like on things like what's your title? Remember they have like Miss, Mrs., Mrs.
Yes.
Da, da, da. It's like I guess like people care about that stuff. So I guess you put it down because I'm like, I don't know, Mrs. is
Yeah.
fine. I could understand if I had like doctor or professor, then for
Yes.
sure I'd be like, I would like to be called doctor. You know what I mean? Always.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be calling me doctor.
You know what? You're not alone in that because my daughter says the same thing. She's like, if I earn a doctor, I'm making sure I don't care who you are, everybody's calling me doctor. I said, no, you're not. Because by that time, you'll be like, no, certain people, yes, call you doctor, but family's never going to call you doctor. Okay.
The
Just,
doctor is here. I'm like, I'm doing that shit. Like, put some respect on my name.
so I guess ma'am and sir are the safest things. If you don't
Yeah, and
know,
sure. Like, and like I said, I've not been to Philippines very long, but I do. They do use ma'am sir, and sometimes it's ma'am sir.
oh,
That covers it.
I like it because then you don't
Sir.
know, right? You don't offend, you
Yeah,
know?
you don't know whatever. So it's like ma'am sir, and like so I think again, I think that's a colonial thing because in their language there's no pronouns. So
Huh.
where did the ma'am sir come from? That must have been an American thing. That must
Yes.
some Americans came and they like ma'am and sir.
Ooh, that's such deep shit that you don't think about. Like it's just so part of our lives that it's just normal, you know?
Yeah. So like I like auntie and uncle. That's what I like.
Oh,
So like if in some cases, uh, you know, and I don't know the rules on that, the Filipino side, but I know like Hawaii side, like it's just safer to be like auntie uncle. Like
yes.
really know them. Like, or not even if you know them, if you know that, but like, you see, this man or whatever, and it's like
Yes.
you can't call him like, Francisco.
Yes.
Like that's too like casual. Like
Yes.
I'd rather say, hey, uncle, da da da. I think it's
Yes.
more
It's
respectful.
respectful. It is. Because even in our family, right? Like my daughter always says it's funny her friends when they call their aunts or uncles by their first name,
Oh
and it's
God.
like, what? She's like, no, they're like your aunt, they're your uncle. Like that's what you call them, you know?
Yeah, that's another like thing that's like, okay. Uh and it's really on the part of like what people feel comfortable with. Like I remember I called my cousin's mom, Mrs. Diaz, and she was, don't ever call me that again. It's Tita. It's like Auntie. Like she calls me, because it's like we're more than like Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
Like we're family now. Like, oh yeah. Um, there was another situation where uh I think everybody was Filipino, and I was actually the oldest one there, like one of the old, like literally the oldest one there. But I didn't present myself as being young because age doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
But we were talking about, somebody had said something. Oh no, I said it, not somebody. I had mentioned, oh yeah, I turned like 50 this year, and I realized this and that, and they're like, so we should be calling you Ate. So I was like, sure. No one's really calls me that, like except, like of course,
Yeah.
but nobody called me that. So hey, you feel comfortable, call me that. So I started signing like Ate G, and like there was one person that emailed me and said, yeah, I don't really call people Ate or Kuya unless I'm related to them.
Yeah.
And I was like, no worries, dude. Like,
Yeah.
no one calls me that except for my
Yeah.
sister. So like that's a new thing for me. But if it's for people that want to, out of respect, that's fine with me. Like, that's
Yeah.
fine. I'll take it. Like, why am I gonna deny? Like, they already know that I'm older than them. They're like in their
Yeah.
20s and 30s. I'm like, they know that I'm way older than that. They just didn't know that I think they thought that was something else, but I was like, so that was it. Again, that's a good conversation to have. Like, what do you want to be called? And what are you comfortable being called?
Mm-hmm.
I remember uh there was what's it called? I think it was why am I having a hard time talking? Um Charlie and Courtney, they'd call me auntie. And I was like, at that time, and I was way younger then,
Yeah.
but they are way younger than us, right? But I was like,
Yeah.
don't call me that. Like I wasn't ready for it. I'm like, don't call me that. Just
Yeah.
call me by my first name, And so they call me by my first name. So I'm like, now I feel like I earned it. Because
That's
they're 20
funny.
years younger than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I get it now why they were calling me auntie back then, because like they're like, whoa, she's old. But now it's
Yeah.
no, now I feel like I'm older. Like now I'm like another echelon of another generation. Like
Yeah.
I'm not trying to act like I'm 29 years old with y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think it's at the end of the day, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. Um, and sometimes you just gotta tell people.
Yeah.
Like my nieces and nephews, they were calling me my first name. Like, so finally I had to tell right before we got married, I had to tell Johnny like they can't call me by my first name anymore. Like we're
Yeah.
married. So he had to train them.
Oh, interesting.
So they call me auntie now, but before we were married, they just call me by my first name. And I let it slide because I'm like, it's a cultural thing. Like they're
Yeah.
not Filipino, like or Hawaiian, so that how would they know?
Yeah.
Um And so they only have one uncle. So like they don't even know. So I was just like, sometimes you just gotta tell people like, yeah, you can call me this, you know, you can
Mhm.
that. Um, whatever, auntie, tia, tita, whatever you want me to call you, like I'm cool with it because it has to do with how you feel comfortable with, you know what I mean?
It's funny. I never really thought about that because I know my cousins. I think when you're little, like your niece or like young, like my cousin's child who's like 2 or 3, they do tell them to call me auntie. But like if they're my cousins, even if they're younger than me, I think they always call me like Joe.
Yeah,
And I
they don't.
just I think about that, right? So I don't think about like auntie and like if I don't know how I'd want to be called. That's a good question. Like,
Yeah, like what do you want to be called? Like
yeah.
my my dad's cousins who are older than us, but the younger ones are maybe closer and with me. Like maybe they're like the youngest one is like maybe like 5 years older than me. And all the younger ones, I've always called them by their first name.
Mhm.
But I noticed that the older ones, which they're not that much older than me, like maybe like 10 years older than me or 8 years older than me, they prefer to be called auntie. And I was like, wow, that's funny because when we were growing up, like, but they were younger then.
Yeah.
At the first day. So I now I get it why, like, because in perspective, it's like, oh yeah, I'm way older than you. Like, call me auntie. That's weird, you know, because
Yeah.
the kids call them auntie. So that's why I'm like, it's just different. Like it's whatever you want to be called, that's fine. Like I got corrected one time, by one of those cousins. It's like,
Yeah.
Auntie Edie. Like, okay, back then I didn't call her Auntie Edie, I called her Edie.
Yeah.
But I get it. She is way older than me, so it's fine. Um,
Interesting that someone would say, "Yeah, I'm auntie." I
yeah,
that's
it's
so
Auntie, like
strange
she
to me.
corrected me, yeah. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. So that's how you do it. You're like, hey, like you sign things. I'm like, it's Auntie, whatever. Like yesterday at my friend's grandbaby's birthday, in the card I put Auntie G, Uncle J.
Ah, that's
She's little and she doesn't know, but I'm like, we're not peers. Like even like the parents. Like I'm way older than you. I'm
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 Auntie
I'm your
Joe.
mom's age.
I'm
Like,
Auntie Joe because I can't be Joey. Joey's like what Jade is like what friends call me, so I guess I'm Auntie Jade.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I'm like, this is the time. Like that way people know. Like, I don't know. I like it. I think it's nice. It's nice to hear, I guess maybe because like I like that's one of the things that I can like, okay, I'm somebody to you. Like
Yeah.
I'm an auntie to you.
There's a level of
We're
respect.
connected. It's a level of
Yeah.
respect, but it's also we're like related.
Yeah.
We're like more than friends. Like,
Yes. There you go.
you know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's a sign of respect, like, with like friends. Like I'm not related to their kids, but they give me respect. Like that's Auntie G, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like it's more than, oh, that's just some lady that comes to these parties. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I'm an auntie. Like I'm close to your mom, you know?
Oh, now that's it. I already know. I'm gonna start doing that now. I'm gonna tell the little ones to call me,
Yeah.
I like didn't think about that.
Yeah. I just feel like, it's just different than just like you're my friend. Like, you know what
Mm-hmm,
I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like that's like if I called your mom by her first name. That's weird.
That's weird,
That's what I'm
right?
saying. That's weird. Like if you called my mom by her first name,
That
it's
would be
like
weird. It's
that's
just
too weird.
it
It's like
feels wrong. It feels
it
wrong
feels wrong.
inside. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think then I feel like I would like to keep up that custom to the next generation of just that. Like I know it's just different. It's like, okay, you want to call them by, I don't know,
Yes.
call me rock or stone or something. You know what I mean? Like, call me whatever. But I feel like the title appropriately, like if it's an elder, like you should be like, okay, I'm an auntie. Because
Yeah.
people respect their aunties and uncles, like I would like to be respected in that sense. Like I'm just nobody. I'm somebody to you. Like,
Yes.
family. Like I'm just known
Yes.
as somebody off the street that works. Like say like like I could be like a coworker. Like
Yeah.
how do you know that lady again? It's like, oh no, but it's like, that's, oh, okay, it's something, it's my mom's close friend, or they've been in the family for a long time, like their auntie and uncle, like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was a lot for me to think about, but yeah, it changed my perspective on that. So that's it. I'm spreading around. I'm going to tell
There you
people what to call me.
go. I want to be called queen.
I'll do that. I'll do that. What do you mean? That's not your name?
I know, exactly. I like to be called, I don't know, a mistress of the night. I don't know. All right. Well, listen to our podcast every Sunday. And if we don't have a new one, listen to an old one.
That's right. There's so many. There's
If
so
you don't
many.
like it, you can like one of the, you can look at some other topics.
We have it all. We've
Guarantee
covered
there's a
it
topic
all.
for you.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, let me stop.